If you still think the Chinese are here to play, then you're sadly mistaken, because this is one of their latest iterations and arguably one of their best ones yet. Welcome to the Jetour T2 review, and in this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about its practicality, its features. I'm going to get behind the wheel and give you my first impressions, and then tell you what it'll cost to own one. Now, this particular variant doesn't even have an official price online, but I'm gonna let you in on a little secret later in this video. So, without further ado, let's get started. Car Talks: Power, Precision, Performance. The vehicle has been lent to us by Jetour Bryanston, so thank you to Aarif and the team for arranging this review. I'll leave his details in the description box below. This, of course, is the top of the range Dark Knight edition, which is essentially the Odyssey under the skin with a few extra bits and pieces which we'll talk about in a minute. And this particular one has just come back from driving presidents and heads of state around at the G20 summit. All I'm saying is, if it's good enough to carry presidents around, then it's surely good enough for me. Now you might ask, how do you know that this one is the dark edition and what actually sets it apart? Well, for starters, it comes with an all-black exterior, which includes various blacked out badges all around the car. And then in terms of paintwork, it is finished in the magnificent matte black exterior paint color. It also has 19-inch rims with red brake calipers instead, to let you know you're in something special. The Dark Knight is powered by a 2-liter turbocharged petrol engine, producing 180 kilowatts and 375 newton meters of torque. Power is sent to all four wheels via a 7-speed dual clutch gearbox. Curb weight comes in at a smidge under 1.9 tons. Moving on to practicality and features, the tailgate is semi-electric, so to open it, you have to press on this little button on the door handle, and then the door unlocks and comes slightly towards you. You will then have to manually pull on the handle towards you in order to have it fully open. However, you do have a giant gas strut that does the heavy lifting for you. On the tailgate still, you also get 2 cup holders, which will come in handy when camping and having a party for 2 under the night sky. Boot capacity comes in at 580 liters, which is respectable and commendable. Comparatively, the Land Rover Defender 110 has 786 liters of capacity. You do, however, get a 12-volt socket and a 60-40 rear bench split configuration. Speaking of the Defender, I don't think it's by chance that the T2 bears such an uncanny resemblance to that car, and that is because the parent company of Jetour is Chery, who then have a partnership agreement with Jaguar Land Rover in China. So even the dimensions are almost identical. The T2 measures 4.8 meters in length, 2 meters in width, and a smidge under 1.9 meters in height, while the Defender 110, give or take a few millimeters, measures, you guessed it, the same 4.8 meters in length, 2 meters in width, and a slightly taller 2 meters in height. So you can quite literally carve a Defender out of the dimensions of a T2. Now, contrarians who want to be controversial might want to argue that the T2 is not as capable as a Defender. Well, it's not. Of course it's not. It cannot possibly be as competent, and nobody is disputing that. But the appeal with this sort of vehicle is that you're getting 80% of what a 1.8 million rand Defender is for a third of the money, and that's where the value proposition lies. And it seems to be working because this thing is selling like hotcakes at the MTN taxi rank at the moment. I mean, the Bryanston dealership alone has sold over 30 units since the vehicle launched a few weeks ago. The national average is set to cross the 1,000 mark by the end of 2025. In fact, I would bet everything I own that the examples you're currently seeing online are probably all sold out, because Jetour has a very long waiting list for these things. Stepping into the rear, you're greeted by the word Jetour on the side sill, and you get a side step because this is a rather tall car. You get a leather bench with red stitching. You also get a center armrest with 2 cup holders and ISOFIX anchor points to safely mount your child's seat. Now, when it comes to the topic of safety, I haven't seen an actual Euro NCAP report with my naked eye. I've merely seen articles that speak of its safety, but not an actual PDF report as issued by NCAP. If you know what the rating is of this car in terms of safety and you have seen the actual PDF report, comment down below and share the link of the underlying report. You get 2 air vents as well as a USB Type A and Type C port. As always, I'm 1.78 meters tall or 5'10", and I can sit quite comfortably behind my driving position. Knee room is cavernous, and this is probably the most comfortable I've ever sat in a Chinese SUV. I can literally stretch out. And because this is a tall car as well, there's ample headroom despite the panoramic sunroof. Stepping into the front, you get the same Jetour nameplate on the door sills. You also get electrically adjustable front seats with red stitching, which are also ventilated by the way. The quality of these headrests are reminiscent of a Range Rover. You also get a massive panoramic sunroof with slide and tilt function, and the black roof lining adds a touch of premiumness. You do get black roof lining in vehicles such as the Omoda C9 and a few others, but this is definitely not the norm with Chinese vehicles. That would be your key. Very nice. Storage space is quite generous, and because the vehicle has a shift-by-wire gear lever, it then means you can use all of the space under the center console for more storage. You also get 2 USB ports down there. You will find 2 cup holders under the armrest and more storage, which is also cooled as well. And that would be your wireless charger. Interior quality is like nothing I've seen in a Chinese vehicle before. You get brushed aluminium and metal bits and pieces everywhere. The Germans, on the other hand, are replacing their interior metal components with plastics. So this feels quite substantial with all things considered then. You get a massive 15.6-inch infotainment that comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. 15.6 inches is generally what you get on a laptop, so what's next? A 65-inch smart TV? I'm not a fan of big screens, as you may already know if you do follow the channel, but I can forgive this one because at least you get physical buttons for your dual zone climate control, and the resolution is second to none. I love this rotary drive mode selector, which you can use to toggle through between eco, normal, sport, snow, mud, sand and rock. I just got tired saying that. I think there's about 7 drive modes in here. But just have a look at the clarity of those graphics as I toggle through. In terms of driving dynamics, the suspension feels supple on normal mode and glides over bumps with ease despite having 19-inch rims, and that is thanks in part to its all-terrain tires. In terms of off-roading dynamics, I'll have to wait until I have the car on test in order to drive it through mud, rocks and proper off-roading terrains. So at this point, I cannot really comment on its off-roading capabilities as yet, but what it does have is 220 millimeters of ground clearance. So it definitely has some of the architecture that is needed to hold its own when it comes to off-roading. Now, it's not a ladder-on frame chassis and you don't get a low-range transfer case, so no 4 low or 2 low gears. So if it's ultimate off-roading that you're after, then you're probably better off in a Ford Everest or Toyota Fortuner. But that does also mean that you need to dig a little deeper in your pockets and spend more. The engine has healthy numbers with 375 Newton meters under your right foot. By comparison, the Mazda CX-60 Individual, which we had on test earlier this year, had a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter petrol engine with only 261 Newton meters. That engine will probably outlast anything on the road, but the lack of oomph frustrated me to an extent. Granted, they're not in the same segment, and I'm not suggesting that they are, but I'm drawing a parallel to the fact that the Mazda is 889,000 rands, so more expensive, and yet you're getting less engine than the T2. The T2, by comparison, feels very light on its feet, despite a curb weight of nearly 1.9 tons. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of turbocharging. It has also not been confirmed that the T2 will ever get a diesel engine, but we do know that there's a plug-in hybrid that's coming to South Africa in 2026. It's still amazing with the petrol, but as a package, I think the T2 would be undeniable with the diesel engine. It already looks the part of a rugged diesel SUV that can tow caravans and climb over mountains, so why not go the whole way? Other highlight features include a 540-degree camera, with those gazillion cameras being the dead giveaway, of course, adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring with lane keep assist, ambient lighting, and a Sony surround sound system. Claimed fuel consumption is 9.3 liters per 100 kilometers on the combined cycle, but this was a brand new car with only 1,000 kilometers on the clock, so the reading was much higher than that. But in fairness to the vehicle, I would need to live with it in order to prove the claim. Before we get to pricing and the cost of ownership, if you're enjoying these videos, then do well to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on those notifications so that you don't miss a single upload. We have bangers only this festive, so you don't want to miss out. Moving on to pricing, you can essentially get into the T2 from as little as 570,000 rands with the Aspire models, which come with a 1.5-liter petrol engine that drives two wheels only. But if you want the 2-liter engine with all-wheel drive capabilities, then you'll need to upscale to the Explorer, and that comes in at 640,000 rands. The top of the range, as shown on the Jetour South Africa website, is the Odyssey, and that is priced at 680,000 rands. But what's not on the website is that you can now spec the Odyssey with the Dark Knight edition. Furthermore, there's no official pricing of the Dark Knight on the Jetour South Africa website at the time of filming, but the dealership has whispered in my ear that they're retailing these for 705,000 rands, so 25,000 rands more than the normal Odyssey. With the Defender being priced from 1.83 million, the Dark Knight is about 38% of that price, essentially just above 1/3. So despite the resemblance, I don't quite view the T2 as a direct competitor to the Defender, based on price point and the vehicle's capabilities. The Defender is a seriously capable off-roader with a crazy water wading depth of 900 millimeters. Using the top spec Dark Knight as an example, on finance, you can expect to pay 13,200 rands a month over 6 years at the current prime interest rate of 10.25% per annum. Insurance is risk profile dependent, and the cheapest quote I got was 2,100 rands. A full tank of petrol will cost you 1,500 rands a month at the current inland price of 95 octane for the 70-liter fuel tank, which would then bring your total cost of ownership to 16,800 rands. I think those are very attractive numbers and a hell of a lot more attainable for ordinary South Africans than some of the German or British counterparts. The closest rival to the T2 in my view has to be the GWM Tank 300, which starts from 650,000 rands, but the two vehicles have gone with completely different philosophies altogether. The GWM happens to have a diesel engine and a true body-on-frame chassis, which means it's properly set up for off-roading, while the T2 is a more sophisticated on-road SUV that has all the bells and whistles you can expect from a modern SUV that lives in Sandton. And just based off of that appeal and the premium feeling interior, my money would certainly go to the T2. It was all fun and games when the Haval Jolion debuted in South Africa in 2021. But one thing that is certain about the Chinese is that they have a very steep learning curve, and every iteration becomes exponentially better than the previous model. And here we are 5 years later, and this is arguably one of the best automotive iterations that have come out of China yet. The T2 is about to eat into some serious market share in South Africa. And not only that of the Germans, by the way, but I actually think it'll start to cannibalize some of the other Chinese brands, which I shall not mention. So it's about to become an interesting time in the South African automotive landscape. But do let me know in the comments what you're getting for 700,000. Without reservation, I'm getting the T2. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.